Hey, folks, Keep It Wausome podcast coming at you with another episode. I have Lora Bladow. Did I pronounce that right?
Play-Doh.
Bladow. Lora Bladow here with me today. She is a real estate superstar and as part of her own podcast, the Home Selling Homies. So, what's going on, Laura?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
And an interesting year so far.
Yeah, it has. I wanted to talk to you, and I do want to talk about how you guys got started with the podcast and everything. But going back, what brought you into real estate in the first place?
Yeah, that's how much time do we have? That's a
Yeah.
long story. Um, it's a running joke in the real estate industry that no child ever goes through childhood saying, "I want to grow up and be a realtor one day," and it's really very legitimate. So my story about how I got into real estate is very long and winding. I was young when I got into it, but still, there was no direct path, and still, there's no even to become an agent here in Wausome was not a direct path either. It was all kind of a divine intervention story for another day. But ultimately, I went to UW-Madison for, I started out in speech therapy, and I quickly changed that to occupational therapy after my first year. And then by my senior year, I did my internships and decided occupational therapy just wasn't really what I saw myself doing the rest of my life. And I had a very difficult decision to make at that point because I was on a full academic scholarship. And I was very much between a rock and a hard place in making that decision. But I did decide to take a year off and work full time at Menards West in Madison at that time to kind of shake out what I saw myself really doing. And I'm a very goal-oriented person. And so when I went to college and I decided that was what I was going to do, that was what I was going to do.
Yeah, I was going to say full academic scholarship. You sound like an overachiever.
Yeah. The theme has carried through my life. But I definitely did not take a step back so much in college to sort of look around and say, what do I really want? Where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? It was never really something that I had even thought about much other than that was what I was going to do. So that was what I was doing.
I'm hearing a lot more support lately for the idea of taking a gap year. And to me, that perfectly epitomizes that I think we kind of shove people into college maybe too quickly sometimes. And we don't give them time to think about, well, what do I really want to do first?
I think especially when, and for instance, I can only speak from my own experience, but I have so many broad interests that really span the gamut of every possible topic and subject. And it was really very difficult for me to pinpoint one thing that I loved more than another, because I just am passionate about learning new things in general, especially in that setting. I loved being a Badger. I loved the university. I loved my courses. I just didn't carry over into like the practical use of it.
Yeah.
I love it so much then.
You sound a lot like me. I'm always like, I've got my fingers in like 20 different things at once. Like
And that it fuels you. Me, at least, it fuels me and it makes me feel alive. And it sort of tapered off when I got into the practical use of occupational therapy stuff. So ultimately I took that year off and decided to go back to school for massage therapy, which was, it was a shorter program. I think it was like a 9-month program in Madison. And I worked full time at Menards, which I didn't know it then, but it became the catalyst for everything else in my career.
I was going to say that sounds like the closest to real estate that we've come so far in the story.
Yeah, right.
Like at least there's some building stuff that would be related to houses.
True, but I had grown up to my great grandpa was a builder, so I was constantly around his new construction stuff. My parents built our home, and I was around that my whole life as well. My dad was very handy. Constantly hands-on stuff. So, I mean, like from the construction point of view, that was always something I was involved in from day one of my life. But
although maybe if you could combine the massage therapy with real estate, you give people a massage first and they're more likely to buy a house. They're like, you get them in a relaxed state. Yes, I'll take it. I'll take it and I'll give you 10,000 more. I feel great.
It's all about the energy and not necessarily the touch. But yeah, you're right. It would be a great sort of perk to add on, I guess. I definitely did, though, at Menards meet several folks who really turned everything toward real estate, because after massage therapy school, I went into the business. I was massaging for 2 years, and unless you own your own practice, you really aren't making very much money. And so it was very hard to make ends meet at that point. And so one of my friends that I had met at Menards had mentioned that the company that she had worked for at that time, it was called Residential Title Insurance, or Residential Title Services, RTS, was hiring, and I should just come talk to her supervisor. And she put in a good word for me. So I did, and I was hired on the spot that day. So I was automatically thrown into the real estate world with no experience in that world at all.
Wow.
But like I said, I'm a quick study. I like to learn new things, and it was exciting. And I really have always been great around people. Like relationships are easy for me to build.
Yeah. Ooh.
As an adult, I realized that my parents were both like that. I didn't realize that until I went into that realm, that that trait had kind of carried through to me. And then 4 years after I started in the title insurance business, was really kind of when we were starting to hit the peak of just before the economy tanked in the real estate world. And so that was like 05, 06, and 07 that I was there. And several times I'd been approached by agents that I was doing the closings for, asking if I'd consider getting into real estate and recruitment type of thing. And I was very young. I'm not even sure if I was engaged yet at that time, but bills to pay, obviously, and it's a full 100% commission job. If you don't sell something, you don't make money. So, and there were no benefits. Obviously, health insurance, is kind of an important thing. So, as a young woman, it was very scary. But by that third year at the title company, I was very confident in what I was doing. Had built some really great relationships with people that were in the industry that had answered all my questions. And I don't know, one day I just decided to go across the highway to the Wisconsin Realtors Association and pick up the licensing course. And so that really launched me then into, again, through a relationship with mutual friends who were involved in the industry. There was a woman in my city that I was living, Sauk City, who was starting a brand new brokerage, and it was through Remax. And so I went and talked to her and another friend of mine and myself started that brokerage. And then there's a lot more that transpired to get me into Wausome. But
how hard is the license to achieve, to pass it?
Not hard. It's I forget how many hours the course is now, because it's been so long since I've taken the actual licensing course. We take 18 hours of continuing ed every other year, but it's not hard if you are capable of studying and paying attention to what you're reading. And it's all on video courses now, whereas then I had to go through the actual packets and test out and that kind of stuff. So easier now.
So now it's all like online. You can do it through some web portals.
Yep. Right through the Realtors Association.
What's it like as a new realtor? Because when I think about realty, I look around and I see like it seems like there's a ton of realtors now. I don't know what it was like when you got into it. I imagine it wasn't too much different. And you're trying to make yourself stand out. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you have no idea, because you sort of go into the notion of seeing successful agents around you thinking they make it look easy. And they're always, driving nice cars and dressed well and doing fun things. And you see that, but you don't see the hours of work that they're putting into it, or the sacrifice of being able to spend time with their kids on a Saturday, or even go to bed at a decent hour.
Mhm.
If you're negotiating something, you're in
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah, I was
24
gonna I was gonna
7.
say, our jobs are pretty similar in that
Yeah.
there's not really it's not a 9 to 5 by any,
Uh-huh.
journalism definitely is not a 9 to 5, and realty is absolutely in that same vein. I imagine it's hard to sometimes make time for yourself.
It's like 95 to 5.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're constantly working, regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're grocery shopping, you're essentially working because you're out there in the community, and somebody's going to inevitably walk up to you and ask you how the market is, and then you're working while you're grocery shopping
Yeah.
because you're networking and you're building
Mhm.
relationships, and it's really a relationship building job. I know a lot of folks, um, in years past, it used to be very traditional salesy, like shoe salesy or car salesy, and that has
Hmm.
not been successful in this realm of where we stand now as a nation, and just as people in general. We don't want to be sold to, and that's, I think, why I took off so quickly. Is as a young woman, I noticed right away that in order for me to be successful, I was going to have to sell to people the way that
Mhm.
I wanted to be sold to, and that was not to be sold.
Yeah. How do you what's your approach? And then maybe you don't want to give away too much of the secret sauce, but I definitely have an idea of what you're talking about. Like you can't really come at people with the hard sell anymore.
No, and I really don't. I really, honest to God, just give my clients empowerment. I give them all of the information, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Hmm.
When I sit down with first time home buyers, especially because they have no idea what's coming down the pipeline, um, I go into real deep what we're about to get into. If you end up with an accepted offer and something goes haywire with the inspection, or your financing has some difficulties, or XYZ is wrong with the house,
Hmm.
like, it's not rainbows and sunshine to
Yeah.
do anything as far as purchasing the largest purchase of your lifetime, and it shouldn't be, because then it would cause some issues. But um what I really try to do the most is develop trust and make sure
Hmm.
that folks understand that I know what I'm doing and I've got their back, but I'm never, ever, ever going to force them into a decision they're not ready for. And this year specifically, but last year and the year previous to that too, well, it's been so incredibly competitive for buyers. I have had to rein some people in and say, look, are you making this giant offer above asking price because you just want to win and you're sick of
Hmm.
looking? Or is it because you really believe that your house will be worth this much in 3 to 5 years when you
Yeah.
have to go to sell? Because this might not be
Hmm.
their permanent home, it might just be their transitional home. And so hard conversations for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard position for a buyer to be in because
Is.
especially if you have, this happened to me when I bought my house in 2016. I started looking, but I still wanted to save more for the down payment. I wanted to make a pretty sizable down payment to keep my monthly expenses low as possible. And I had like three houses that I kind of had my mind or my eyes set on. And all of a sudden, within 1 week, they all were sold.
Yeah.
And it gives you this feeling of like a sense of urgency. It kind of instills a sense of urgency in you, and you start thinking, and I had to kind of coach myself. Like when I started looking at new houses, I said, just because those other houses fell through doesn't mean you have to jump on this next one unless it's the right house.
Yeah.
And then the very next house I looked at actually is the one I'm in. So it turned out to be the right house. The price was right. I
Yeah.
This was right before the market went bananas, and I got a
Yeah.
great price on it. It's actually valued at about 20 some thousand more than it just got assessed for about 20,000 more than I paid for it. And but those things go through your mind, and that was back then.
Yeah.
Now I can't imagine. I mean, that's got to be a challenge to coach people when with a such a difficult situation.
It is a challenge, and it's definitely, I think, why I have almost all of my businesses referred to me. And I think that's probably a big reason is that people, I mean, it's kind of tough to find somebody who's going to tell you the God's honest truth and not just want to push you into it to kind of get it closed. Like that's not at all. I think the hardest part about being a new agent, you had asked me earlier, is that you're living paycheck to paycheck. So if your deal falls through, you don't pay your bills. And that's scary, first of all, especially, for instance, when I first started in real estate, I was living with my then fiance. And so I had a backup income. And when I moved up to Wausome, I've been divorced and it was an entirely different situation. And had no backup income. So it was make it or break it, girl, and scary. And actually, I almost didn't go back into real estate. I had been interviewing for jobs up here just because that is like, there's literally nothing more terrifying than knowing you have bills and no guaranteed way to pay them.
I guess the hard part would, to me, for a new person, would seem like it takes a while to build that trust and start word of mouth. You know, you probably now have a lot of word of mouth and people are saying, oh yeah, Laura did a great job on my thing. You should buy it. You should have her sell your house or have her help you buy. Are you on the buyer side or the seller side more?
It's equal.
It's equal. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, after a while, now you probably have a lot of those people saying that, but I got to imagine being brand new to town as well as, as well as being brand new in the industry, that's got to be tough.
It was, except again, just being open to exploring relationships that you've developed or starting new relationships. You really have to be fearless in knowing who you are and being able to communicate that really. And not when I say communicate, I don't just mean tell somebody something. I mean, show it, right? So to be a good human and to be trustworthy and to really be invested in your community and the best interests of the people around you, that's something that you do by showing your integrity and not necessarily by like, oh, look at me, So that in and of itself is really a key factor in getting up and running. But I tell every new agent, I've mentored quite a few of them, that you really don't get established in this business where you can consistently depend on an income for at least 2.5 to 3 years. And that's if you are out there hustling. So if it's something that you're trying to do part-time, you're going to struggle.
That's interesting. I imagine, did you tend to like kind of keep like a more of a reserve than most people would, so when you had those really good months, you would put like extra aside to make sure you had to cover if you had a couple bad months?
Financially, I really figured out over the years how to do it. But I'll tell you what, I was in debt so I kind of have like part one of my real estate career where I was in Sauk City, Madison market, and part two when I moved up here. Part one, I was 25 years old when I got into the industry, and I didn't really have a ton of guidance. It was really a trial and error part of my career where I just had to figure it out. And if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. And I invested a gazillion dollars. Obviously, I don't have a gazillion dollars, but it was, I really went into debt quite a bit, figuring it out in that first round. And then second round, as I moved up here, really figured out how to do things much more fiscally responsibly and not make an investment in all of the new shiny fancy technology things unless I absolutely needed it, or I knew somebody who could tell me specifically how and why it was valuable to them and not just because it was new to the industry. So, when I moved up here, this had started in my first part of my career, but when I moved up here, I really dove into using social media because one, it's free. Two, there's literally no better way to get to know somebody than by following them on any social media platform, because you can tell when somebody's being genuine and when it's just a produced kind of, fakeness that you're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, a real constructed type of style versus just being open and honest and, hey, here's my life.
Yeah, and you
Mhm.
know, you have to be able to provide value to people in order for them to feel like they want to consistently learn more. So, figuring out a formula for myself in how I shared information so that people really felt like it was of value to them and not just, you know, fancy anything.
Mhm.
I don't really produce anything. It's really mostly on the fly. Sometimes I'm in no makeup and a ponytail, and sometimes I'm dressed up to go to an event, and you get all of me on my social media. So it's really, I think, probably a very large part about when I initially started up here in Wausau, how I sort of established myself as an expert was being able to show them that I knew what I was talking about.
Did it take you a while to get comfortable doing that? Because now you seem like, at least from the outside, you seem pretty comfortable, like just sharing, hey, here's what's going on with me today. And, you know, you're doing a lot of Facebook Lives, that kind of stuff for a while. You know, it
Yeah,
seemed, yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's first of all, you have to be very vulnerable and be
Mhm.
very willing to face criticism, which happens,
Yeah.
and that's fine. You know, it's not for everybody. I'm okay with that. Um, yeah, it definitely took me a hot minute to feel comfortable in knowing what to say or do. But that was kind of also in my world. I specifically chose Remax because of the support on the backside of things. The network of agents throughout the world is over 110 agents strong, and you know we're
Mhm.
not all in the same markets. We all have very different markets. Some of them are way more progressive than our area where we tend to lag behind in trends. And so once you develop relationships through networking with other agents that have tried things and know what to do to make them work and how, you know, have brilliant, really brilliant suggestions on how to tweak things for your market, then, you know, having that behind you is really very empowering. And the encouragement that you get in that community too, you know, really drives you in a lot of ways. It's sort of like having a, you know, your own personal cheerleader standing beside you on the sidelines during a football
Yeah.
game thing.
Well, that's one of the things I miss about you know, having newsrooms that were actually fully full of reporters, is that it used to be like when you know, you had other journalists around you to bounce ideas off of. And there's times
Yeah,
when now that I, you know, something comes up, and you know, I've been in the business long enough that most things that come up I've seen before, but there's still comes situations that, you know, you think about and you're like, well, man, I'm not sure what to do. And I find myself reaching out to people who used to be in the
yeah,
business, but that's kind of too bad. Like it would be nice, I think, if you know, it was people who were, if I had people that were, I was actively working next to, who were actually doing the same thing I do. And that's kind of too bad. So I can appreciate where you're coming from on that for sure.
I can definitely relate to what you're saying, and I definitely feel like you're absolutely right. There's a synergy that happens when there's other energy in the room that you can feed off of.
Mhm.
Definitely agree with you. Yeah.
So tell me about starting the podcast. Speaking of putting yourself
Yeah.
out there, the home selling homies.
Home selling homies.
Check them out on YouTube, you guys.
Yeah, we haven't done many episodes this summer. I think we did one June or
Mhm,
July maybe, because it's just been too busy, unfortunately.
mhm.
So we'll probably start getting back into that. I'm assuming once the fall market starts to sort of give us a little bit of some breathing room, and we head into winter. I'm sure we'll do a bunch more. But yeah, so Brittany Burns and I have been great friends ever since she started in the business, which was just shortly after I did here in Wausau. And she's with First Weber. And then Phil Larkin is also with First Weber. And Brad Harvey is in my office. And I was trying to remember if he was already in my office when we started it. But
Mhm.
ultimately, you know, when you're sort of in an industry that just um, feels like everybody's competing against each other. We sort of all individually had friendships outside of business that, people, Brittany and I would show up to broker opens together. Broker opens are like open houses, but for agents. So, she's coming from First Weber and I'm coming from Remax, and we show up together to walk through these properties and get familiarized with them, so that we could talk about them with our clients, kind of thing. But everybody was very confused from the get-go as we developed this friendship that we met each other through a Noon Optimist meeting. She was a guest, and she was brand new to the business. And I went up to her and started introducing myself to her, and we got to know each other a bit that way. But we developed a very quick and fast relationship because we just have so much in common personally. And both of us are just very sort of, I don't know, rebels, I guess, as far as like falling into the status quo of things, and the expectations of how you should be is not something that we're interested in doing. So
Nice.
sort of just related on that level, and that we're both really good humans that wanted to be friends, and it really didn't matter what office we were from. And it was really good to, like you said, bounce ideas off of each other and have that trusting relationship that sort of allowed us the freedom to be ourselves without feeling like somebody's going to take advantage of you, kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, see, that happens in I've had a lot of friends from other news organizations too, and I think that sometimes surprises people because I'm a firm believer that you can compete, but it doesn't have to be personal. Like I definitely would keep some news items to myself if I was talking with one of my friends from another organization. If I had a story I was working on that's big, I'm not going to share it with them so they can scoop me. But that doesn't mean we can't be friends. And we're still, we'll hang out. Nora Hurdle, who's now in Minnesota, like her and I were really good friends. We'd go to each other's houses. I was friends with her husband too. Both really cool people. I miss them a lot. And it doesn't have to be this personal vendetta thing. It's I always think of it as like the old Coyote Roadrunner cartoons where all of a sudden the whistle, they'd be chasing after each other, and all of a sudden the whistle sounds and they punch the clock and they're like, oh well, have a good day, see you tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not even sure how we ended up. I think it's just because we ended up getting together for lunch one day, the four of us, just to be able to have some people who understood what we needed to vent about, to like monthly get together and just be able to share stories. Because, this is true of almost every industry, but there are things that you go through in your career that people outside of your industry just don't understand, or your spouse just doesn't understand, or your loved ones, whatever the case may be. So so to have them and be able to get together once a month for lunch and be like, oh my gosh, like I'm struggling with this right now, or guys, this is so exciting, and and have them celebrate too was really fun. But ultimately we laugh so much because we just have a great mix of personalities that it's hysterical. And so as a joke during one of those lunches, I was like, we should turn this into a podcast. People should hear how funny this stuff is, and it just sort of went from there.
That's usually how they start. This should be a podcast. That's how mine started. I started having these like long, I'd go to interviews and it would be something that would supposed to take 10 minutes and I'd end up talking to the person for an hour and a half. And we talk about all this great stuff and I'm like, that's just put a mic and you got a podcast.
True story. It was, the podcasting end of things was definitely secondary to our actual careers. So it was never intended to be, it's more of entertainment value and never intended to be like supplemental income, anything like that. But it's just fun to have. And I think that it's very unique to see, just like I was saying earlier, people from different brokerages sharing in their love of their industry is unique. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a great time when we get together. It's always a blast.
Yeah, there's some great episodes that I felt would be really good for a first time home buyer that I probably would have liked, back when I was buying a home, because you guys share some great information about what it's like going in, going into this stuff, because it's a whole new world, man. It's a whole new set of skills to learn. And I kept thinking like, wow, I'm spending I'm putting all this energy into learning about house buying and learning all these little things that as soon as I buy my house, it's almost completely useless until maybe sometime in the future, if I ever buy a new one. It's kind of a crazy thing.
It is crazy. And it is not stuff that, and that's part of the problem too, is when you get into the business and you've been in it for a while, you start to, you've done it so many times, and you start to kind of overlook some of the small, intricate anxieties that come with it.
Sure.
So that too is another great reason that having people to be able to share, people like my homies podcast people, to share, reminders with, is invaluable for sure.
So what's like one of the weirdest stories you have to share from your real estate days? Like,
gosh, there's so many weirdest. Well, of course I'm not going to think of one now that I'm.
Yeah, it's hard when you get put on the spot.
I have a hashtag Adventures in Real Estate, and I take pictures of things that are just crazy because it never fails that there's like an electrical outlet in a shower in a basement from the 1950s. A bathroom, it's just a shower in a basement kind of thing.
Hashtag probably safe.
Really safe. And especially like this one was literally right, like the water was directed to just the left of the electrical panel. And I was like, that made sense to someone, and I'm not sure why. I mean, I've
shower radio, Laura. Shower radio.
Yeah, right.
How else are you gonna plug it in? Come on.
Alternative to getting a perm, I guess. I'm not sure.
Maybe they had a plug-in like generator that they put on where the water would flow over the little wheel and generate electricity.
Maybe, who knows? I definitely didn't think of that part, but it's possible. I've walked in on people not knowing that there are people in it. Like, this is typical of a walking through, like if you're showing a duplex or rental properties, that tenants don't really care that you're coming through. And so I've walked into everything from somebody smoking pot on a couch to a naked guy in a recliner that I didn't know was there. And I was like, oh my gosh. All of the things that you can imagine people doing at home, I've typically walked in on unknowingly.
Man,
it's usually the really just crazy, like, I don't know. I have a property right now that I'm working on that this story is just incredible, but the owner of the property is out of state, and so his tenant went to jail, and he didn't know that squatters were living there.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was interesting. That was my first time experiencing a property that had squatters in it, and that's weird. Just to think that you would just go live in a house that you have no rights to is kind of interesting. And in case you didn't know this, you can't just walk in and kick them out. You have to go through an eviction process, even though they have literally no ties to the property. That's so bizarre to me, but
yeah, isn't there a certain number of days or something? If they're there a certain number of days that you can't just have them evicted, and there's like a whole process. Yeah, it can be months long.
Yeah, and
I had a friend who had a rental property, and what would happen is they have, I don't know if it was their son. I think they had their son involved, and their son would rent the place. Then he would move out, and his mom and her friend would move in, and they would squat on it. And they would live there until the process finally, kicked them out, and they would go repeat the process. And apparently they were doing this all over town.
Yeah.
But it took her, it took her months to get rid of them. And meanwhile, you're still paying the mortgage on this property. I think a lot of people sometimes don't take that into account, that, you have all these expenses associated when you're the owner of a rental property.
Right.
Not like it's just money coming in that's for free. I mean, it can be a very revenue positive investment, but if you're not renting it out, especially if you have squatters, I mean, they're probably doing damage to the property that's going to cost you, and you're still paying the mortgage on it, assuming you have one. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people don't take that into account, but that is a thing of the profession.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I've always heard stories of, but this is the first run in of my own.
Right.
It's crazy. Yeah. All kinds of great stuff.
So is that why you're at the gym now, getting all buff so you can boot them out, intimidate them?
No, that's for personal reasons, but I do have a concealed carry, and I definitely have needed to feel safer in certain circumstances, especially open houses, which fortunately this market has allowed me to back off on, so I don't feel quite as exposed. But that part is scary. I'm not going to lie, especially as a woman.
Yeah.
Being in an open house where you're advertising where you are, that you're
Right.
probably alone, is a little bit it's a little bit scary. So I do have a stun gun that you do need a concealed carry for. So I do use that. I have not had to use it, but I mean,
I was gonna say that was something I was gonna touch on with being a realtor, is that especially as a female realtor, you're offering in places where you're not even an open house, but just in a general walkthrough. I mean, you're alone with a person, and who knows? I'm sure 99% of the time it's fine, but it's that 1% or 0.1% that can be scary.
As an industry, we've had a lot more over the last couple of years. Agents be abducted, agents be killed at a property. So we have definite policies now. All brokerages have a policy now about if you are meeting a new client, that you need to meet them first at the office, get identifying information. If you're going to be meeting somebody at a property, because of whatever circumstances, just doesn't logistically meet or can't meet for the first time outside of a property, then to take a teammate along, something along those lines, and to always have awareness of where you are in the property, so that you're not, blocked in, so that you're able to escape more quickly. Also, to make sure that somebody always knows where you are. It's very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate that that's necessary, but sometimes that's the realities of today's society.
Yeah, and I don't think so. I mean, this is something that comes up quite often when people are very angry that we won't just drop everything and rush to meet them at a property in the middle of nowhere that's vacant. Because they just want to see it and they have time to go see it. But for us, it's literally life or death in some cases, So that's something that I think we could do a better job of bringing attention to. But I think that we've, as far as local brokerages, our brokerages have done a good job of making sure to educate us as agents and making sure that we have resources available to us too.
So tell me about your new foray into the fitness world. I've noticed those pictures lately.
Yeah, not really new. I go in
Not
street.
that new, but yeah.
I definitely, I finally hired a personal trainer because I turned 40 this year, and I definitely had some COVID.
Welcome to the club.
Right?
Yeah.
COVID rate has accrued, and I've had a very difficult personal year aside from COVID, unrelated to COVID. My year was already tough. I lost my dad this spring. I lost my grandma last fall, and my brother-in-law had colon cancer, and so all of the things happened at once. I went through a pretty good bout of depression earlier this year, and you really lose yourself, especially when you have to be on all the time for work, and you can't really turn yourself off. And then you have to be on to deal with the grief that you're going through. And then you just really, I don't want this to sound like a pity party, but I do want people to know that they're not alone if they're feeling not themselves. It takes effort to get up out of bed, or it takes a lot of effort to take a shower once every 3 days kind of thing. It just definitely gets to you. And I've been through things. I've been through hard things. This is not new for me, but I definitely struggled for a little bit. So hiring a trainer and getting back into working out is something that I've always known in the past has worked for me to kind of pull myself out of my depressions, because it's something I've dealt with on and off for years, and mostly situational, and sometimes it can also be seasonal. And going into the winter now, I definitely wanted to get ahead of it, since I had already been sort of down this track already this year.
People sometimes scoff at it, but I really think exercise has a huge benefit in terms of mental health. I mean, it's not a panacea, but it sure does make a difference.
For me, it's giant, because it holds me accountable to making sure that I'm not just eating a bunch of junk that makes me feel worse. And two, I think there's something about sweating that just heals your soul. I don't know what it is, but it just gets it out, whatever that is that you're. And obviously there's, the whole, I forgot, I just lost the word. Endorphins. You feel good regardless. So that makes a big difference. And even if I can't make it to the gym because of whatever, I've been trying very hard to make sure that I'm at least taking a walk outside in daylight, so that I'm not losing that vitamin D either.
Yeah, those walks make a big difference.
Huge. Yeah.
I love them. Yeah. Now, did I see correctly? Are you kind of getting into the CrossFit side of things now?
Nope. Definitely no. I did try that when I first moved up here, and I had won a membership to lift. I think I won like a 2-week trial or a month trial or something to lift when I first moved up here from like a silent auction type thing. And I did try a CrossFit course just to try something new and see if it was something I wanted to get into. And I was definitely not for me. I'm not built that way, but I am a former athlete. So to be able to lift weights and challenge myself is definitely still something that feels good to me. I just have to be careful because I have some joint issues. So
you were an athlete?
I was an athlete. Yeah. I was definitely a gymnast. I was definitely a shot putter and a discus thrower in track.
Nice.
Yeah. And I definitely, I'm just athletic in general, just like enjoy being, riding bikes or going for runs or, I don't know, kickball. I really enjoyed kickball for a little while. Just being active is really more my athletic style, but I'm also very competitive. So that comes into it too.
It's good trait for a real estate professional, I imagine.
Yeah. Very good trait.
And did I see that you were working out with some special forces guys?
Yeah, that was crazy. So I went in for my workout one morning, and was there 4? I think there were 4 guys in the gym that I was like, their biceps are literally bigger than my head. Like one of them had biceps bigger than my thigh. And I was like, what is happening? So I went up and asked one of the people working. I was like, what? I typically go around the same time to the gym and usually see the same people, and these people were definitely never there before. So I was like, what's going on here? Definitely the bodybuilder types. And they happened to be the Secret Service people for President Trump when he was in Mosinee that day.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was tied to. Yeah,
it's crazy. I was like, oh my goodness. And I don't know why these things happen to me, but it's random that I go places and I see things that I'm just like, nobody's around here. How are they going to believe me?
But you went and got a picture with them.
Well, I didn't get a picture with them. I took one of them.
Oh, you did?
with permission. Yeah, they were taking one for the gym, and I was like, mind if I take one too? And yeah, so that was
I
nice.
misremembered. I thought I remember you being in amongst them, but
No,
I
no,
misremembered. Still pretty cool though.
it was very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, you meet some interesting people in the fitness world, that's for sure.
Yeah, no
A
doubt.
couple of times in yoga classes, we'd have sometimes people from the Grand would come over.
Oh
It's
yeah,
kind of the same thing. Like there was a show, I can't remember what show it was, but all of a sudden there were like these people, and that just looked way too fit compared to everyone else. I
yeah.
was like, who are these people? Like, I like that they just moved to town or something. I'm like, oh, they came from. Turned out they came from the one of the musical productions or something. So
That is cool.
yeah, it's
Were you
kind of
teaching
neat.
that, or were you just participating?
What's up?
Were you teaching that class, or were you just
No,
participating?
I was just another student. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
cool. It's really interesting too when you strike up conversations in these circumstances. Sometimes you're just like, oh yeah, you are literally just like me. Your job just takes places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of neat. I mean, I kind of miss in-person yoga classes, although I wasn't really going that much anymore. After having gone through yoga training and just having done yoga for decades now, um, I have kind of a morning routine that I do, and I'm just happy with that. It's more
Yeah.
focused on stretching and stuff, and I also lift and run. And actually, after the podcast, I'm going to go hit the mountain bike trails while it's still warm enough. It's a super
It's
warm day
lovely.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And beautiful out. So good for you. Good day to
yeah,
get here.
definitely a good day for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so I want to talk a little bit before I let you go about some of the successes you've had in real estate, because I can't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but they sounded like a lot. So, was it last year or 2 years ago you won some big award, or tell me about that?
In real estate, yes,
Mhm.
I um I do typically every year, but last year was the first year. So in real estate brokerages, and the brokerage means like Remax, Coldwell Banker, First Weber, Keller Williams, like those are the brokerages.
Yeah.
They're the brands that you operate. So I'm self-employed.
Mhm.
That's something that people don't understand. I don't have a paycheck. I work for myself. I
Yeah.
just affiliate myself with a brand, and then
Mhm.
we pay fees to that brand so that we can use it. So every brokerage has their production levels that they award people. And so last year was the first year in my career that I made it to, and I just blanked on what it's called. So it's the essentially the executive level is sort of like that first level of awards that you are in Remax are eligible to achieve, really. And everything is measured by your gross commissions earned, which we don't like to talk about gross commissions with the public. So it's always one of those catch-22s to feel like, yeah, I earned this and I worked my butt off for it, but I don't like talking about it because it's money. you know it's definitely like one of those things where you feel like you want to be proud of it, so you show that you've achieved something, but it's not something that I focus on.
Mhm. Do you measure it in sales too, like just in pure sales numbers?
Well, that is how they measure your
That's
sales,
how I
is
measure it. Yeah.
gross commissions. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. And that's industry wide. That's not specific to any one brokerage.
Oh.
It's just how it's measured.
Mhm. Because when you say commissions, I assume we're talking about what you take home, but is there a measurement just in terms of like total dollars sold,
No,
or you
gross
don't
commission
really?
isn't necessarily what we take home as
Oh, it
agents.
isn't. Okay.
That's what is earned on the sale. So, for instance, if you sell $100,000 property and the commission, um, is like 6%, and you're one of the two agents that gets split among the agents, not equally. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but
Gotcha.
um, but so let's just use a raw number. Like if it were 3%, it would be like $3,000. So that would be the gross commission. But that's not what you walk home with, as an agent. That's just on that sale.
I gotcha. So there's sort of a divvying structure that is in place. Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting. So that's one of the benefits of being in part of this, part of one of these brokerages, is that you have sort of a structure and there's some support, and is that sort of the idea?
Yeah. And I think, and I can't really speak for the other brokerages. I can only speak for mine, but within RE/MAX Excel, you can choose how you want that split to occur, how much support you want from the brokerage versus how much you want to be sort of like left on your own. And so
gotcha. Interesting. Well, I think we had a pretty good podcast today. Is there anything else you wanted to tell people, or?
I'm just honored. I do want to just wish, I don't know when this will come out, but I do want to say it's Athena nominations time, and I know several people have gotten nominated this year that I just want to wish everybody the best of luck. It's so amazing to see the amount of talent in this community, and that's something that I really enjoy about Wausome is I loved Madison, but I definitely love that it's more personal relationship wise. It's more quaint here. And I'm just really proud of the people that I get to work with every day in this community. And so just want to wish them all the best of luck, and to congratulate them on such a large achievement, because it's really something else to be nominated by your peers for a leadership award in a community that you're doing your best just to be a good human. And sometimes that you don't even feel like people see you, but then you get this nomination and it's really incredible feeling. So I just wanted to say congratulations to all of the Athena and Young Athena nominees, and I'll look forward to seeing who wins this year.
Were you nominated?
Yes, I was the winner last year and nominated 2 years in a row. So that was,
wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
And do people vote for the winner?
There's a secret panel. That none of us know. First of all, we don't know who nominates us, and we don't know who votes in the end. So nominations come from the public, but you're not told who nominated you.
Well, secret panel. If you need someone to vote for.
I'm not on it this year. I won it last year.
Oh, you're not. Oh, you're not on it because you're not. Nope. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But I do know several of my friends who have been nominated this year. And so it's just another one of those things that as part of the community just makes me proud to be among them.
Nice. That's cool. Well, it sounds like a good place to wrap it up. So thanks for being on today. And, I have all my guests say, keep it Wausome. So keep it Wausome, Laura.
Keep it Wausome, Brian.
Hey, thanks for being on. Everyone out there in Wausome land, you guys keep it Wausome too, okay? And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.